The vultures knew death better than any living creature in these parts. They circled low over the ravine, black specks against the merciless Arizona sky, their patience infinite. Lucas Harrow reined in his horse at the ridge overlooking Black Mesa Valley, squinting against the harsh afternoon glare. December 1878 had brought cooler mornings to the desert, but by midday the sun still carried surprising heat. The earth remained hard as iron baked from months of drought that even winter couldn't soften. Lucas was 40 years old, though the lines carved deep around his eyes made him look older. Former Union sharpshooter, 3rd Virginia Cavalry, Gettysburg survivor, widower. The last 3 years had been spent alone on Iron Ridge Ranch, just him and the ghosts that haunted the empty spaces of his cabin. The vultures circled lower. Lucas drew his Colt single-action army from its worn leather holster. The weapon's weight was familiar after 20 years of carrying it. He clicked the hammer back and guided his horse down the slope, curious despite his better judgment. What he found there would change everything. At first it looked like just a strange mound of dirt, maybe an animal burrow. Then he saw the hair, black as midnight matted with dust. Below it a human face, skin burned dark red by the sun, lips cracked and bleeding eyes closed. A woman buried to her neck in the hard-packed earth. Around her throat hung a wooden sign, Apache symbols carved deep into the grain. Lucas didn't need to read their language to understand what this was. An execution in progress, slow and deliberate. He dismounted his left knee, protesting from an old war wound that never quite healed. The Gettysburg injury. 15 years and it still ached with every step. Lucas crouched beside the woman, studying her face. Young, maybe mid-20s, beautiful even through the layers of dust and suffering. Her eyes fluttered open, dark almond-shaped and filled with a fierce will to live that struck him like a physical blow. Not pleading, not begging, just fighting, still fighting. "Hold on," Lucas muttered, pulling his hunting knife from his belt. The sound came just as he began to dig. The distinctive whistle of an arrow cutting air. Lucas threw himself sideways as it thudded into the dirt where he'd been kneeling. 3 Apache warriors appeared on the ridge above, silhouetted against the burning sky. Another arrow already knocked. Lucas rolled behind a boulder, drawing his Colt in one fluid motion. The first warrior had made his mistake, showed himself too clearly against the skyline. Lucas exhaled half a breath, steadied his hand the way he'd done 1,000 times before, and squeezed the trigger. The Colt bucked against his palm, the report echoing off the canyon walls. The warrior dropped. The other 2 disappeared from the ridgeline, but Lucas knew they hadn't gone far. He had seconds, not minutes. With his knife he dug frantically around the woman's neck and shoulders. The earth gave way reluctantly beneath his blade, hard as stone from months without rain. Her breathing came faster now, whether from hope or fear he couldn't tell. Another arrow struck the ground 3 feet away. Lucas holstered his gun to use both hands, prying at the compacted soil. His fingers bled. The woman's shoulders came free, then her chest. She wore a simple deerskin dress, once finely decorated with beadwork, now torn and filthy. "Almost there," he said, returning to the digging. When he finally pulled her from the earth, she weighed almost nothing, just skin and bone and determination. Lucas lifted her onto his horse, then mounted behind her, one arm holding her steady against his chest, the other gripping the reins. The warriors appeared again, closing in on foot now, arrows drawn. Lucas fired once more, the bullet kicking up dirt at their feet. Then he spurred his horse hard, and they raced across the valley floor, the sound of pursuit fading behind them. As they crossed into territory Lucas knew better than any man alive. His cabin stood alone at the base of Iron Ridge, backed by ponderosa pines and facing the open valley. Good for seeing visitors long before they arrived. A small corral held 2 more horses and a mule. A stream ran nearby, crystal clear even in the drought. His fields, though modest, gave enough to survive on. Lucas carried the woman inside and laid her on his bed. The bed he'd shared with Rebecca. The bed where Emma had been born. The bed where both of them had died of influenza 3 winters ago while he'd been trapped in a snowstorm trying to fetch the doctor from town. He hadn't let anyone lie there since. But today, he had no choice. Lucas secured the horses, grabbed his Winchester from its scabbard, then returned inside and barred the door. Old habits from the war habits that had kept him alive more than once. He checked the windows, positioned the rifle within easy reach, then filled a tin cup with water from the pitcher. She stirred as he placed the cup against her lips. Drank slowly, each swallow deliberate and painful. When she'd finished, her eyes found his. "They leave me die," she said in broken English, her voice rough from thirst. "No children, bad woman." Lucas set the cup down and examined the wooden sign he'd removed from her neck. The Apache symbols were carved deep, meant to last. "Name's Lucas," he said simply. "You're safe here." "Ayita," she replied, touching her chest weakly. He nodded once, then moved to the window, Winchester resting across his forearm. The sun was setting, painting the land blood red. They'd be coming, if not tonight, then soon. In these parts, a man's business rarely stayed his own for long. Night fell across the desert like a curtain, complete darkness broken only by scattered stars and a sliver of moon. Lucas sat by the window, rifle across his lap. The fire in the hearth had gone cold. Smoke would give away their position. The silence was absolute. Desert silence. The kind that made a man hear his own heartbeat. Ayita's breathing was steady now. Still alive. Still here. A wolf howled in the distance. Wind whispered through the gaps in the cabin walls. The smell of dried pine. The smell of dust. The smell of sweat and blood on her clothes. Lucas closed his eyes but didn't sleep. Never sleep when there's a threat. 15 years since Gettysburg, and the habit remained. "You saved me." "Why?" Ayita's voice startled him. She was awake. Lucas didn't turn around, kept his eyes on the window, on the darkness beyond. "Because no one should die like that." Silence stretched between them. "Your woman?" Ayita asked. "Where?" Lucas swallowed. His throat was dry. "Gone. 3 years. Children? Gone." A full minute passed. "You alone," Ayita said. Not a question. A statement of fact. "Yes. Me too. Now." Lucas turned to look at her. She was sitting up in bed now, back against the headboard. Her hair was still matted with dirt, her face still burned from the sun, but her eyes were alert, watching him, assessing him. On the small table beside the bed sat a framed photograph Lucas had forgotten to put away. Rebecca holding Emma. Emma smiling wide, 4 years old, missing her front tooth. Ayita looked at the photograph for a long time. Lucas stood, crossed the room, and picked up the frame. His fingers trembled slightly as he touched the glass. He set the photograph face down on the table. "I'm sorry," Ayita said softly. Lucas shook his head, turned away, walked outside without a word. The morning air was cold, crisp. Lucas stood by the well, drawing water to wash his face. The icy shock of it cleared his head. He looked down across the valley. No riders yet, but they would come. The cabin door opened. Ayita stepped out, moving slowly, one hand braced against the wall. Her legs trembled, but she was standing. Lucas turned. "You should rest." "No." Ayita shook her head. "I work, I stay, or I go." Lucas studied her. This woman 8 hours ago, buried alive, now standing here asking if she could stay. Not begging, not pleading, offering fair exchange, work for shelter, dignity even in desperation. "You can stay," Lucas said, "long as you need." Ayita nodded once. The decision made. She spent the morning trying to help, sweeping the cabin floor with a broom she'd found in the corner. Lucas told her to sit before she fell, but she refused. Stubborn, determined. By afternoon, Lucas knew he had to teach her to defend herself. In this world, there were 2 kinds of people, those who could protect themselves and those who died. He brought out his spare Remington revolver, showed her how to load it, how to hold it, how to aim. "Point," he instructed, guiding her stance. "Breathe out halfway, then squeeze. Never pull. Her hands trembled. The gun was heavier than she'd expected. She fired. The recoil surprised her, the shot going wide, missing the tin can on the fence post by 3 feet. Again, Lucas said. She reloaded. Fired. Missed. 10 times she tried. 10 times she missed. Aida breathed hard, frustrated with herself. Lucas placed a hand on her shoulder. Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither are shooters. Late that afternoon, as Lucas was teaching Aida how to reload faster, they saw dust rising 3 miles out. 3 riders coming from the direction of Redemption Town. Lucas handed the Remington to Aida. "If I say run," he told her, "you run to the pines. Don't look back." She nodded, but her grip on the gun tightened. Sheriff Clayton Doyle and 2 gunmen rode up to the cabin, stopping 50 yards out. Doyle was in his 50s, gone soft around the middle, a man who'd worn a badge so long he'd forgotten what justice meant. The 2 men with him were hired guns. Lucas could tell by the way they sat, their horses' hands never far from their weapons. "Harrow," Doyle called out. "Got word you're harboring a hostile. That true?" Lucas stepped out of the cabin, Winchester cradled across his chest. Aida stood in the doorway's shadow, the Remington hidden in the folds of her dress. "My land's not for sale, Doyle," Lucas said. "What's in my house is my business." One of the hired guns, a tall man with a long scar down his left cheek, spat tobacco juice on the ground. "Heard she's cursed," the scarred man said. "Her own people buried her. You know what you brought into your house?" Doyle held up a hand. "Brennan wants a word. About your land, the water rights." "I said no. 3 months ago. Answer's still no." Doyle shrugged. "Times are changing, Harrow. Apache raids up north. Cattle dying without water. Brennan's offering good money to small holders. Most are selling." "I'm not most." The second gunman, shorter with a goatee, laughed. "You will be, when they burn you out." Lucas clicked the Winchester's safety off. The sound carried clearly in the stillness. "I've killed men for less than threats, Doyle. Don't make me add to that count." Doyle stared at Lucas for a long moment. The sheriff knew Lucas's reputation. Former Union sharpshooter. 47 confirmed kills at Gettysburg alone. This wasn't a man who made empty threats. "You've been warned," Doyle said finally. He pulled his horse's reins around. "We'll be back." The 3 men rode off, dust trailing behind them like smoke. Lucas watched until they disappeared over the ridge. Then he turned back to the cabin. Aida was still in the doorway, the Remington now visible in her hand. "Who is Brennan?" she asked. Lucas leaned the Winchester against the wall. "Cattle baron. Owns 40,000 acres. Wants mine because of the well. Only water source for 15 miles. He paused. "Word is he made a deal with the Apache. He gives them you, they give him mining rights on their sacred land." Aida's face went pale. "He trade me for silver." "That's what I hear." She was quiet for a long moment, then looked up at him. "You keep me here, you make enemy. Apache and white man both." Lucas met her eyes. "I've had worse enemies." That night they ate a simple meal of beans and cornbread. Aida insisted on cooking, though her hands still shook from exhaustion. Lucas let her. He understood the need to be useful, to not feel like a burden. After dinner, as the last light faded from the sky, Lucas taught her more about the Remington. How to clean it, how to maintain it, how to reload in the dark by feel alone. "In a fight," he told her, "you won't have light, won't have time. Your hands need to know what to do without your eyes." Aida practiced fumbling at first, then gradually finding the rhythm. She was a fast learner, smart, determined. It reminded Lucas of Rebecca, who'd never backed down from an argument, never accepted being told she couldn't do something. But Aida was different too, harder, shaped by different fires. Later, as Lucas sat watch by the window, Aida tried to sleep but couldn't. He heard her tossing, restless. Finally, she got up and came to sit beside him. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. They sat in silence for a while, watching the darkness together. "My people," Aida said finally, her voice soft. They believe woman without child is curse. Break connection to earth, to moon, to spirits. She touched her stomach. 3 years no baby. Medicine man say I am curse. Bring drought, bring sickness. Lucas listened without interrupting. My husband Dakota, he wait 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. Her voice caught. Then he take new wife, young, already with child. And medicine man say I must be buried, to cleanse tribe. That's not your fault, Lucas said. They not see that way. They see death of children in village, see no rain, see sick animals. They see me. She looked at him. You have dead wife, dead child. You understand loss. Lucas nodded slowly. Rebecca always wanted more children. We tried for years after Emma. Nothing came. He stared out into the darkness. Doesn't make her cursed, just made her sad. White people not believe curse? Some do, most don't. Lucas shifted the rifle in his lap. We just call it bad luck, or God's will. Amounts to the same thing. Aida was quiet, processing this. You believe I cursed? Lucas looked at her directly. No, I believe you were unlucky, and I believe your people were scared and looking for someone to blame. He paused. Fear makes people cruel. She studied his face in the dim light. You different. You not scared of me. I'm scared, Lucas admitted. Just not of you. Before Aida could respond, Lucas held up his hand. Listening. Hoofbeats. Distant, but getting closer. He stood moved to the window. Through the darkness he could just make out a figure on horseback moving slowly up the valley. One rider. Alone. Stay inside, Lucas said. He grabbed the Winchester and stepped out onto the porch. The rider came closer, hands held high and empty. As he entered the moonlight, Lucas recognized him. Marcus Riley. One shot. Marcus. They'd served together in the 3rd Virginia Cavalry. Marcus had lost his left eye to a Confederate bayonet at Gettysburg, left with a wicked scar running from his eyebrow to his cheek. Lucas, Marcus called out. It's me. Don't shoot. Lucas lowered the rifle slightly but didn't put it down. It's past midnight, Marcus. What brings you? Marcus dismounted, wincing. His right arm was bandaged, blood seeping through. Got jumped outside Redemption, Marcus said. 6 Apache, led by a tall son of a bitch with a red band around his head. Dakota? Aida's voice came from the doorway. Marcus looked past Lucas, seeing her for the first time. His one good eye widened slightly, but he nodded in greeting. Ma'am? Then back to Lucas. He gave me a message. Said you have 3 days. Return her or they attack in force. Lucas helped Marcus inside, sat him down, started cleaning the wound on his arm. How bad? Lucas asked. Arrow went clean through. I'll live. Marcus grunted as Lucas poured whiskey over the wound. But Lucas, there were 6 of them. Could be more. This ain't a fight you can win. Aida stood in the corner watching, silent. Lucas finished bandaging Marcus's arm. Your choice, Lucas said to Aida. You can go back, face whatever they decide, or you can stay. But if you stay, there'll be blood. Aida didn't hesitate. I stay. Marcus looked between them, then shook his head with a slight smile. Stubborn, both of you. He stood carefully. Then we'd better prepare. Dawn comes early and they'll be watching. But they didn't wait for dawn. As the 3 of them discussed plans, Lucas heard it. A sound he'd learned to recognize 20 years ago in the war. The whistle of an arrow in flight. Down. The arrow crashed through the window, embedding in the far wall. Then came the war cry, the distinctive Apache battle call that had haunted the frontier for generations. 6 warriors materialized from the darkness, riding hard toward the cabin. Lucas was at the window in an instant, Winchester up. He fired, worked the lever, fired again. 1 warrior fell. Marcus grabbed the shotgun from above the door, moved to the back window. Aita stood frozen for a moment, then grabbed the Remington. "The window!" Lucas shouted to her. "Cover the east side!" She moved without hesitation, positioning herself where Lucas indicated. An Apache warrior appeared in her field of view, arrow drawn. She raised the Remington. Her hands shook. A week ago she'd never fired a gun. Now a man's life depended on her aim. She breathed out, squeezed. The Remington barked. The warrior clutched his leg, fell from his horse. Aita stared at the gun in her hands, shocked at what she'd done. "Reload," Lucas commanded. "Don't think, just reload." Her hands moved automatically, doing what he'd taught her. Marcus's shotgun boomed from the back. The warriors pulled back, regrouping in the darkness beyond effective range. Then Lucas saw him. Dakota. Tall, powerful, a red band around his head and a long scar running down his cheek. He sat on his horse at the edge of the light, staring directly at the cabin, at Aita. Dakota raised his rifle. Lucas tensed, ready to fire. But Dakota didn't aim at the cabin. He fired into the ground near his horse's feet. A warning shot. A message. Then he called out in Apache words Lucas didn't understand but felt the weight of. Aita responded, her voice strong despite the fear in her eyes. A back and forth. Dakota's voice getting harder. Aita's remaining firm. Finally, Dakota turned his horse and rode away. The other warriors, those still mounted, followed. Silence fell over the valley again. Lucas moved to the door, checked the perimeter. 2 Apache warriors down. 1 dead, 1 wounded and unconscious. The others had retreated, dragging one of their wounded with them. He turned back inside. Aita was still standing by the window, the Remington in her hand, tears streaming down her face. Not from fear, from something else. Relief. Vindication. The end of something. "What did he say?" Lucas asked. Aita wiped her eyes. "He say I dishonor him, dishonor tribe. He say I must return, face judgment. And you said, I say I free. He bury me. I owe him nothing." Lucas moved to check Marcus, who'd taken a graze across his shoulder but was otherwise fine. "They'll be back," Marcus said, grimacing as he tried to move his arm. "That wasn't the end. That was the beginning." Lucas nodded. He knew Marcus was right. He looked at Aita, still standing by the window, and saw something in her eyes he recognized. The same thing he'd seen in the mirror every day for the past 3 years. The will to survive. The refusal to give up. The determination to keep fighting even when the odds said you should have died already. She'd been buried alive and crawled out. She'd been condemned and refused the sentence. She'd picked up a gun for the first time in her life and defended herself. Aita wasn't a victim anymore. She was a survivor. And Lucas realized as the first light of dawn began to touch the eastern sky that he was no longer just existing either. For the first time since Rebecca and Emma died, he had something to fight for beyond mere survival. He had a reason to live. Morning came with a weight that pressed down on the valley like a physical thing. Lucas stood on the porch watching the sun climb over Iron Ridge. His shoulder ached where he'd slept against the wall Winchester across his lap. Inside, Marcus snored softly in the chair by the cold fireplace. Aita had finally fallen asleep just before dawn, curled up on the bed, the Remington still clutched in her hand. The 2 Apache warriors lay where they'd fallen. Lucas would need to deal with that soon. The desert heat would make the decision urgent by midday. He heard movement behind him. Aita stepped out onto the porch, her face drawn but her eyes clear. She'd washed somehow, probably with water from the pitcher. Her hair was pulled back, still damp. "You should sleep more," Lucas said. "No more sleep." She looked at the bodies in the yard. "We must bury—" Lucas nodded. "The right thing to do, even for enemies." They buried the dead warrior 50 yards from the cabin in the shade of a lone cottonwood. Lucas read from Rebecca's Bible, the only book in the house. "Ashes to ashes, dust to dust." Aita sang something in Apache, soft and mournful. A prayer for the dead, Lucas assumed. The wounded warrior had regained consciousness. Lucas bound his wounds, gave him water, then helped him onto his horse and sent him back toward the Apache camp with a message. "Tell them we want peace, but we'll defend ourselves." The warrior rode off without a word, clutching his wounded leg. Marcus emerged from the cabin, squinting in the bright sunlight. "That's either the smartest thing you've done or the dumbest," he said. "Guess we'll find out which." The day passed in tense preparation. Lucas showed Aida how to reload the Winchester, how to work the lever action. Her hands were steadier now. The shock of last night had burned away some of her hesitation. "Focus on the motion," Lucas said, working the Winchester lever slowly. "Smooth and steady. Your hands will remember even when your mind forgets." Aida practiced with empty cartridges, first watching Lucas demonstrate. Load, aim, fire, eject, reload, over and over until her muscles knew the pattern. When Lucas finally let her fire live rounds, she was ready. The first shot went wide, the second closer. By the 10th, she grazed the target. "Better," Lucas said. "Much better." By afternoon, she could hit a target at 50 yards one time in 3. Not good enough for a real fight, but better than yesterday. Marcus watched from the porch, cleaning his shotgun. "She's got potential," he observed. "Learns fast." "Has to," Lucas replied. "Won't get a second chance to learn slow." That evening, as the three of them ate a spare meal of beans and salt pork, Marcus laid out what he knew. "Brennan's been buying up land for 6 months. Started with the big spreads, offered fair prices. Then moved to the small holders. Prices got less fair. Anyone who refused started having accidents. Fires. Cattle poisoned. Wells fouled." "And the law?" Lucas asked, though he already knew the answer. "Doyle's on Brennan's payroll. Has been since spring." Marcus spooned beans into his mouth, chewed thoughtfully. "Town council knows but won't act. Brennan employs half of redemption one way or another. Cross him and you starve." Aida listened intently, following about half the conversation. "Why he want land so bad?" she asked. Marcus glanced at Lucas, who nodded permission to continue. "Silver," Marcus said. "Brennan thinks there's a vein running under Apache territory all the way down to the valley here. Needs water rights to work a mine. Your well," he pointed at Lucas, "is the key to the whole operation." "And the Apache?" Lucas asked. "That's where it gets interesting." Marcus leaned back. "Brennan made a deal with Neol, the tribal chief. Brennan gets mining rights on sacred land. In exchange, he provides guns and horses. But there's a condition." Marcus looked at Aida. "You. Brennan promised to deliver you back to the tribe for judgment. Seals the deal." Aida's face went pale. Lucas felt anger rising in his chest, hot and tight. "So I'm just caught between two men making bargains," he said quietly. Dangerous quiet. Marcus nodded. "That's about the size of it." Aida stood, abruptly walked to the window. Stood there with her back to them, shoulders rigid. Lucas wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. What could you say? That it wasn't fair, that she deserved better. She knew that already. Finally, Aida turned back around. "I not go back," she said. Her voice was steady, firm. "They bury me once. I not let them do again." "Then we fight," Lucas said simply. Marcus sighed. "Against Brennan's 15 guns and 20 Apache warriors. 3 of us." "3 is enough," Lucas replied, "if we're smart." Over the next few days they prepared. Dug shallow trenches behind the corral for cover, piled sandbags near windows, set traps along the most likely approaches, a covered pit on the main path, tripwires strung between rocks, nothing fancy but enough to slow attackers, make them cautious. Lucas drilled Aida relentlessly. An hour every morning with the Remington, another hour in the afternoon with the Winchester. Her shoulders ached from the recoil. Her hands developed calluses, but her aim improved. By the end of the week, she could empty a revolver and hit a man-sized target at 20 yards more often than not. With the rifle, she was reliable out to 70 yards. "You're a natural," Marcus observed one afternoon, watching her punch 3 holes in a piece of wood at 60 yards. Aida lowered the Winchester, looked at him skeptically. Natural means you've got talent, like you were born to it. She considered this, then shook her head. Not born, made, by need. Lucas understood. Nobody was born to violence, but the world had a way of teaching those who wanted to survive. In the quiet moments between the training and the preparation, Lucas found himself talking with Aida more. Small conversations at first, about the weather, about food, about the land, then deeper things. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set, Aida asked about Rebecca and Emma. Lucas hadn't talked about them with anyone, not even Marcus. But something about the way Aida asked, gentle but direct, made him want to answer. Rebecca was strong, he said. Not in body. She was small like you. But in here. He tapped his chest. Strong will. Didn't take no for an answer. Wanted to build something out here, make a life worth living. She happy here? Lucas thought about it. Yes and no. Loved the land, loved the freedom. But it was hard. Harder than she expected. Lonely. He paused. Emma helped. Having a child gave her purpose. Someone to teach, to raise up proper. How they die. The question was blunt, but Lucas found he didn't mind. Influenza. Winter of '75. Hit fast. I rode to town for the doctor, but a blizzard came up. Couldn't get back for 3 days. His voice went flat, reciting facts. By the time I made it home, Emma was already gone. Rebecca followed 2 days later. Aida was quiet for a long moment. You not there when they die? No. That why you alone now? You punish yourself. Lucas looked at her sharply. But she wasn't accusing, just stating what she saw. Maybe, he admitted. My people believe, Aida said slowly, choosing her words with care, that grief is like winter. It come, it stay, but eventually it must go. Spring always come after winter. Always. And if spring doesn't come, then you still in winter, by choice. Lucas had no answer to that. They sat in silence as darkness fell across the valley. On the 7th morning, Lucas decided he needed to ride to Redemption. They needed supplies, ammunition especially, and he wanted Marcus to translate the wooden sign that had hung around Aida's neck. I'll go alone, Lucas said. Safer that way. Aida shook her head. I go. Too dangerous. Everywhere dangerous. She met his eyes. I not hide. Lucas recognized that stubborn set to her jaw. He'd lost enough arguments with Rebecca to know when pushing would just make someone dig in harder. Fine. But you stay close, and keep the Remington loaded. Redemption was a collection of wooden buildings strung along a dusty main street. Saloon, general store, blacksmith, livery stable, assayer's office. Maybe 200 souls called it home if you counted generously. Lucas and Aida rode in together just after noon. The effect was immediate. People stopped what they were doing, stared. An Apache woman riding alongside a white man. Whispers started before they'd even dismounted. Lucas ignored them, tied the horses outside the saloon, helped Aida down. Wait here, he said. She shook her head. I go. Lucas sighed. Stubborn woman. Stubborn man. Despite everything, Lucas almost smiled. Inside the saloon, the smell of whiskey and tobacco and sweat hung thick in the air. A dozen men scattered at tables nursing drinks in the midday heat. Conversation stopped when Lucas entered, stopped dead when Aida followed. Marcus sat at a corner table playing poker with 3 men Lucas didn't recognize. Marcus looked up, his one good eye taking in the situation instantly. Harrow, Marcus said, keeping his voice neutral. Heard you've been making friends? Lucas pulled out a chair, sat down. Aida stood behind him, hand near the Remington under her shawl. Lucas set the wooden sign on the table. Need to know what this says. Marcus picked it up, examined the carved symbols. His expression hardened. Barren womb. Death sentence. He looked up at Lucas. Where'd you find it? Around her neck. Lucas nodded toward Aida. They buried her alive. Marcus studied Aida for a long moment. Something like respect flickered in his eye. You pulled her out. Now Brennan's got a problem, and you're a target. Tell me something I don't know. Marcus folded his cards, stood up. Brennan's been hiring guns for 2 weeks. Got maybe 20 men now. Word is he's planning to move on the holdouts by month's end. Marcus lowered his voice. And he's made that deal with the Apache I told you about, trading her for mining rights. Lucas's jaw tightened. When? Soon. The saloon doors swung open. 2 men entered. Lucas recognized them from the visit with Sheriff Doyle. Brennan's hired guns. The tall one with the scar and the shorter one with the goatee. Scarface spotted Lucas immediately. A slow smile spread across his face. Well, if it ain't the Indian lover, he drawled loud enough for the whole saloon to hear. Lucas remained seated, but his hand moved closer to the Colt at his hip. I'm finishing my drink, Lucas said calmly. Then leaving. No trouble needed. Maybe trouble found you anyway, Goatee said, stepping to the right to create a crossfire angle. The saloon cleared fast, men scrambling for the door, diving behind the bar. Marcus moved smoothly to Lucas's left hand on his own weapon. Aida stepped back toward the wall, creating distance, giving herself room to move. Scarface's hand hovered near his pistol. Heard you killed 2 of our boys at your place. That true? They came at me first, Lucas said. Self-defense. Funny how it's always self-defense with you types. Scarface's smile widened. Let's see how you defend against this. He drew. Fast, but not fast enough. The rookie mistake of drawing while talking, telegraphing the move. Lucas's Colt cleared leather as he pivoted away from the table. The world slowed down the way it always did in moments like this. Training from 2 decades ago taking over. Muscle memory deeper than thought. First shot took Scarface center mass. He was still falling when Lucas continued his turn, dropping to one knee. Goatee fired the bullet, splintering wood above Lucas's head. Lucas's second shot caught Goatee in the chest. The man staggered backward, hit the wall, slid down, leaving a red smear. The entire exchange took less than 5 seconds. Silence crashed down over the saloon like a thunderclap. Gun smoke hung in the air, acrid and thick. Lucas's ears rang from the shots. Then he felt it. The burn in his left shoulder. He looked down, blood soaking through his shirt. Goatee's bullet had grazed him a shallow furrow, but bleeding freely. Marcus was at his side instantly. We need to ride, now. Brennan will have the whole town after you. Lucas holstered his Colt, stood carefully. The room spun slightly. More blood loss than he'd thought. Aida appeared on his other side, her face pale but determined. I help, she said, taking his right arm. They made it to the horses. Lucas pulled himself into the saddle with effort, vision graying at the edges. Aida mounted quickly, brought her horse alongside his. Hold on, she said. For the first time since he'd met her, there was fear in her voice. Not for herself. For him. They rode hard out of Redemption, Marcus bringing up the rear, covering their escape. No pursuit came, but Lucas knew it was only a matter of time. The ride back to the cabin blurred. Lucas focused on staying in the saddle, on keeping the horizon steady. Aida rode close, ready to catch him if he fell. When they reached the cabin, Lucas tried to dismount and his legs gave out. He hit the ground hard, consciousness wavering. Strong hands caught him. Aida impossibly strong for her size. She and Marcus half carried, half dragged him inside. Get him on the bed, Marcus ordered. I'll get water and clean cloth. Aida laid Lucas down gently, then started cutting away his shirt. Her hands were steady now, focused. The bullet had carved a deep groove across his left shoulder, missing bone but tearing muscle. It bled heavily but not arterially, painful but not fatal. Aida cleaned the wound with water she'd boiled, then applied a poultice made from herbs she'd gathered in the forest. Willow bark for pain, yarrow to stop bleeding, sage to prevent infection. "Where did you learn this?" Lucas asked through gritted teeth. "My grandmother. She teach all women. Medicine is woman's work among my people." She worked methodically, her touch gentle but firm. Lucas watched her face, the concentration there, the competence. "You keep risking life for me," Aida said quietly as she wrapped clean bandages around his shoulder. "Why you do this?" Lucas met her eyes. "Because it's right. Because you deserve to live free. Because—" He paused, looking for the words. "Because I was dead inside for 3 years, and you made me remember what it feels like to be alive." Aida's hands stilled on the bandage. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his, a gesture Lucas didn't understand but felt the weight of. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus cleared his throat from the doorway. "Hate to interrupt, but we've got company." Lucas sat up too fast, pain lancing through his shoulder. He staggered to the window. On the ridge overlooking the valley, a lone figure sat on horseback. Even at this distance, Lucas could make out the red band around his head. Dakota. The Apache warrior raised something to his face. A spyglass, Lucas realized, stolen or traded from white men. Dakota was watching them, studying the cabin, planning his next move. For a long minute, Dakota sat there still as a statue. Then he lowered the spyglass and raised his rifle high above his head. Not aiming. A signal. Then he turned his horse and rode away. "What does it mean?" Marcus asked. Aida stood beside Lucas at the window, staring at the now empty ridge. "It mean he coming back," she said softly, "with many warriors. This was warning. He give us time to prepare, or to run." "Very honorable of him," Marcus said dryly. "He not bad man," Aida said. "He do what tribe tell him, what father tell him, but inside—" She touched her chest. "Inside, he still remember." "Remember what?" Lucas asked. "When he loved me." Night fell across Iron Ridge. Lucas sat by the window despite the pain in his shoulder rifle across his lap. He'd taken laudanum for the pain, just enough to take the edge off, but not enough to dull his senses. Aida brought him coffee, sat beside him. "You should sleep," she said. "So should you. Neither of us sleep tonight." She looked out at the darkness. "We both know what coming." Lucas nodded. "Brennan won't wait long, and the Apache are massing. We saw at least 10 fires on the ridge earlier, maybe 20 warriors or more." "We cannot win," Aida said quietly. "Probably not." "Then why you fight?" Lucas thought about that. Really thought about it. "Because some things are worth fighting for even when you can't win. Because if I run now, I'll run forever. Because—" He looked at her. "Because you're worth it." Aida was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have secret. I not tell you before." Lucas waited. The blood. Moon blood. It come back. 2 days ago. Lucas understood immediately. The implications crashed over him. "You're not cursed," he said. "No." Tears shone in her eyes, visible even in the dim light. 3 years nothing. I think maybe medicine man, right? Maybe I am empty. Broken." She touched her stomach. "But now, it come. I am normal. They wrong." The tears spilled over now, running down her cheeks. Not from sadness, from relief, from vindication, from the weight of 3 years of shame and self-doubt finally lifting. Lucas pulled her close without thinking. She buried her face in his chest, her small body shaking with sobs she'd held back too long. "They were wrong," Lucas said softly, stroking her hair. "You were never broken." They sat like that for a long time, Aida crying silently, Lucas holding her, both of them knowing that tomorrow would bring blood and fire and possibly death. But tonight, in this moment, they had found something neither expected. Connection. Understanding. The beginning of something that felt like hope. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns. The desert held its breath, and somewhere in the darkness, enemies gathered preparing for war. But inside the small cabin at the base of Iron Ridge, two survivors held on to each other and found strength in shared pain, shared determination, and the fragile possibility of a future worth fighting for. Dawn broke cold and clear over Iron Ridge. Lucas woke with his head against the wall, neck stiff, shoulder throbbing. He'd dozed off sometime in the small hours despite his best intentions. The Winchester lay across his lap, and for a moment he couldn't remember where he was. Then it came back. The gunfight in Redemption. The ride home. Aida's revelation about her moon blood returning. He looked across the room. Aida was curled in the chair by the dead fireplace, a blanket pulled around her shoulders. Still asleep. Her face in repose looked younger, more vulnerable. The hard edges of survival softened by unconsciousness. Marcus was gone. Lucas found him outside, checking the perimeter shotgun cradled in his arms. "Quiet night," Marcus reported. "Too quiet. Don't like it." Lucas understood. The silence before a storm was always worse than the storm itself. They spent the morning reinforcing defenses. Marcus dug the pit deeper across the main approach, Lucas moving carefully because of his shoulder-strung more tripwires. Aida gathered stones, piling them near windows for throwing if they ran out of ammunition. By noon, Lucas's fever started. He tried to hide it at first, kept working, kept moving. But Aida noticed. She always noticed. "You burning," she said, pressing her hand to his forehead. "The wound. Infection, maybe." "I'm fine," Lucas protested, but even he could hear the weakness in his voice. "You not fine. You need rest. Now." She was small, barely came up to his chest, but when Aida used that tone, Lucas found himself obeying. Rebecca had sounded like that sometimes, the voice that brooked no argument. He let her lead him inside, let her lay him down on the bed. His vision swam. The room felt too hot, then too cold. "Stay with him," Aida told Marcus. "I get medicine." She disappeared into the pine forest behind the cabin. Marcus sat in the chair watching Lucas with his one good eye. "She's something else," Marcus observed. "Yeah," Lucas managed. "You got feelings for her." Lucas closed his eyes. Did he? A week ago she'd been a stranger, a woman he'd pulled from the earth on impulse. Now she was something he couldn't quite name. Not Rebecca. Would never be Rebecca. But something. "Don't know," he said honestly. "Don't know if it matters." "Always matters," Marcus replied, "especially if you're about to die for her." "Not dying for her, dying for what's right." Marcus snorted. "Keep telling yourself that." Aida returned an hour later with a cloth bag full of roots, leaves, and bark. She boiled water, made a bitter tea that tasted like dirt and burned going down. "Drink all," she commanded. Lucas drank. The room spun. Darkness crept in at the edges of his vision. Then the fever dreams came. He was back at Gettysburg, July 1863. The heat and the noise and the smoke, men screaming, horses dying, the wet sound of bullets hitting flesh. He was on Cemetery Ridge, rifle burning hot in his hands, firing again and again into the gray mass of Confederate soldiers advancing across the field. A young rebel, couldn't have been more than 17, came straight at him. Lucas pulled the trigger. The boy's head snapped back. He fell. Lucas had killed 47 men at Gettysburg, counted every one, remembered most of their faces. The dream shifted. Rebecca stood in their cabin doorway. Not sick, healthy, beautiful. Emma clutched her hand, smiling up at him. "You're home," Rebecca said, relief in her voice. But when Lucas tried to move toward them, his feet wouldn't work. He was stuck, and they were getting farther away, fading. "I'm sorry," Lucas tried to say. "I came as fast as I could. The storm. I couldn't get through." We waited for you, Rebecca said. Her voice was sad, not accusing, just sad. Emma asked for you at the end, kept asking where Papa was. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. They faded to nothing. Lucas stood alone in an empty cabin. Snow piled against the windows. No fire in the hearth. Just cold and silence and the weight of absence. Rebecca, Emma. Lucas, wake up. Different voice, accented English, soft hands on his face. Lucas opened his eyes. Aida leaned over him, worry creasing her forehead, behind her lamplight. Night had fallen while he dreamed. You cry out, Aida said. Call their names. Lucas's face was wet. He reached up, touched his cheeks. Tears. When was the last time he'd cried? Not at the funeral. Not after. Not once in 3 years. I'm sorry, he said, not sure who he was apologizing to anymore. No sorry. Aida wiped his face with a cool cloth. Grief is like winter, remember. It must come out, must melt, or it frees you inside forever. Lucas caught her hand, held it. How did you survive? He asked. Being buried alive, being condemned. How did you not break? Aida was quiet for a long moment. I did break, she said finally. Inside the earth I break. I give up, ready to die. She paused. Then I hear voice. My grandmother. She died 5 years ago, but I hear her clear as if she beside me. She say, Aida, you not done yet. You have more to do, more to give. Fight. So you fought. So I fight. Even when I not want to. Even when I think death easier. I fight because she tell me to. Aida smiled slightly. Then you come. Dig me out. I think maybe grandmother send you. Maybe spirit's not angry, just testing. Lucas thought about that. Testing. Maybe that's all life was. A series of tests to see what you were made of. Whether you'd break or bend. Whether you'd give up or keep fighting. Your grandmother was wise, he said. She was hard woman, like stone. But she teach me important thing. She say pain is teacher. You can hate teacher, but you must learn lesson, or pain come again and again until you learn. What's the lesson? Aida considered. That we stronger than we think. That we survive what we think will kill us. That spring always come even after longest winter. She adjusted the blanket around him, checked his forehead. The fever had broken. Lucas could feel the sweat cooling on his skin. Sleep now, Aida said. Real sleep, not fever dream. I watch. Lucas wanted to argue, wanted to stay awake and keep watch himself, but his body betrayed him. The fever had burned through whatever reserves he had left. His eyes closed despite his best efforts. The last thing he saw was Aida sitting by the window, the Remington across her lap silhouetted against the starlight, standing guard, protecting him the way he'd protected her. Lucas woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Morning light streamed through the windows. He sat up carefully. The shoulder still hurt, but the feverish confusion was gone. His head was clear. Aida stood at the stove cooking. She'd found Rebecca's old apron somewhere, tied it around her waist. It was too big for her, hanging almost to her knees. Something about the sight of her there in Rebecca's kitchen wearing Rebecca's apron should have hurt, should have felt like betrayal. It didn't. Instead, Lucas felt something else. Warmth, rightness, the sense of a house being lived in again instead of just occupied. You cook, he observed. Aida turned, saw him sitting up, smiled. You live. Good trade. Marcus came in from outside, stamping dirt off his boots. Well, look who decided to rejoin the land of the living, Marcus said. Had us worried there for a minute. How long? Lucas asked. 3 days, Marcus replied. Fever broke last night. Aida barely left your side. Stubborn woman wouldn't even sleep proper. Lucas looked at Aida. She shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. You do same for me, she said simply. Over breakfast, Marcus laid out the situation. No sign of Brennan's men yet, but they're coming. I rode to the ridge yesterday. Counted 15 fires in the Apache camp. Maybe 30 warriors now. Dakota's gathering an army. Why haven't they attacked? Lucas asked. Don't know. Maybe waiting for something. Maybe Brennan's coordinating with them. Marcus sipped his coffee. Or maybe Dakota's having second thoughts. Aida shook her head. Not second thoughts. He gathering strength. Want overwhelming force. Make sure he win. She paused. Also, he wait for full moon. 3 nights from now. Apache believe full moon give power to important actions. Judgment, battle, death. So we have 3 days, Lucas said. Maybe less if Brennan moves first, Marcus added. Lucas stood testing his strength, wobbly but functional. He walked to the window, looked out across the valley. Beautiful country, hard country, the kind of place that broke weak men and forged strong ones. Then we use the time we have, Lucas said. Prepare as best we can, and if they come, we make them pay for every inch. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation and waiting. Lucas's strength returned slowly. By the second day he could fire the Winchester without his shoulder screaming. By the third he could work without needing to rest every hour. Aida continued to improve with the guns. Her natural caution made her a better shot than Lucas expected. She didn't rush. Took her time, breathed and squeezed like he'd taught her. You'd have made a good sniper, Marcus told her after she put 5 shots in a 6-inch circle at 70 yards. What is sniper? She asked. Someone who shoots from hiding, takes out enemies from distance. Aida considered this. Hunting, she said. Same as hunting deer. Wait. Be patient. 1 shot, 1 kill. Exactly, Marcus said, except the deer shoots back. In the quiet moments, Lucas taught Aida to read. They used Rebecca's Bible, the only book available. Started with simple words. God, man, earth, heaven. Aida learned quickly. Her mind was sharp, hungry for knowledge. She looked up at him then, and something passed between them. Not love, not yet, but understanding, recognition. 2 people who'd been alone too long, finding unexpected companionship. Aida leaned forward, rested her head on Lucas's shoulder. He froze, unsure what to do. Then slowly, carefully, he put his arm around her. They sat like that for a long time, the Bible forgotten, the lamp burning low. Outside, the wind whispered through the pines. Inside, 2 survivors found a moment of peace in the eye of an approaching storm. On the morning of the 3rd day, Marcus rode in fast, his horse lathered with sweat. They're coming, he said, dismounting in a rush. Brennan's moving. 12 riders, maybe more, an hour behind me. Lucas felt his stomach tighten. This was it. No more waiting. The Apache, he asked. No sign yet, but if Aida's right about the full moon, they'll come tonight. Lucas nodded, looked at Aida. She stood in the doorway, the Remington already in her hand. You can still run, he told her. Take a horse. Head south to Mexico. You'd be free. Aida shook her head. I run before. When they condemn me, I run inside myself. Hide. Give up. She met his eyes. No more running. I fight. Here. With you. Lucas wanted to argue, wanted to force her to leave to save herself. But he knew that look, the set of her jaw, the fire in her eyes. She'd made her choice, just like he'd made his. Then we fight, Lucas said, together. They had perhaps 45 minutes before Brennan arrived. Lucas and Marcus checked weapons ammunition positions. Aida filled canteens with water, set them at strategic locations. If this turned into a siege, they'd need water more than bullets. Here's how I see it, Marcus said, sketching in the dirt with a stick. They'll come straight up the main path. Hit the pit trap, lose a couple riders. Pull back, regroup. Then try to circle around from the sides. The tripwires will slow them, Lucas added. Give us time to pick them off. What about fire? Aida asked. They burned cabin. Lucas and Marcus exchanged glances. They'd thought of that. No good defense against fire except distance. If they torch it, we fall back to the tree line, Lucas said. Make them come to us in the forest. Harder to use numbers there. Marcus nodded approval. Good ground. Pines are thick. Could hold out for days if we had to. They took positions. Lucas on the roof with the Winchester. Best vantage point, clear sight lines across the valley. Marcus at the east window with his shotgun. Close-range devastation. Aida at the west window with the Remington and spare ammunition. The waiting was the worst part. Always had been. In the war, the hours before battle were torture. Men checking weapons over and over, writing letters to wives and mothers, praying or cursing depending on their nature. Lucas had learned to use the time differently, to empty his mind, to become still inside. Fear was useless. Worry changed nothing. All that mattered was the moment when it started, being ready when the moment came. He watched the valley. The sun climbed higher. A hawk circled overhead hunting. The wind rustled through dry grass. Then he saw them. Dust rising in the distance, growing closer. Lucas counted riders as they emerged from the heat shimmer. 12, just like Marcus said. Brennan at the front, easy to recognize by his expensive hat and the way he sat his horse like a king surveying his domain. Sheriff Doyle rode beside him. Not surprising, the law had chosen its side. The riders stopped 100 yards out, just beyond effective rifle range. Smart. Brennan hadn't survived this long by being stupid. Harrow, Brennan's voice carried across the distance. This ends today. The woman for your life. That's my only offer. Lucas stood on the roof, Winchester cradled across his chest, clearly visible. You want this land, Brennan? He called back. Always have. The woman's just your excuse. Brennan's face darkened even at this distance. You're outnumbered 12-3, you fool. Nobody needs to die here. Be reasonable. Men always die for something, Lucas shouted. Might as well be something worth dying for. He saw Brennan turn, say something to his men, saw one of the hired guns, impatient or nervous, raise his rifle. The shot cracked across the valley. The bullet struck the roof 6 inches from Lucas's foot. Lucas didn't hesitate. Brought the Winchester up smooth and fast, sighted down the barrel, squeezed the trigger. The man who'd fired dropped from his horse dead before he hit the ground. Take him! Brennan roared, and the attack began in earnest. Bullets tore into the cabin as Lucas fired methodically from the roof. One shot worked the lever, another shot. He dropped 3 men before they reached the first trap. 2 riders hit the covered pit. Horses screamed. Men fell hard. Marcus's shotgun boomed from the window. The blast caught another man trying to circle around the side. He flew backward out of his saddle chest, torn open. Aida fired from her window. Crack, crack, crack. Measured shots. One hit a rider in the shoulder, another took a horse in the flank, sending its rider tumbling. The attack faltered. 6 men down in less than a minute. The remaining riders pulled back, taking cover behind rocks and scrub. A bullet grazed Lucas's thigh. Another punched through his left forearm. He barely felt them. The battle focus had taken over. That strange clarity that came in combat where pain became distant and time stretched out. He rolled to a different position on the roof, still firing. Saw Sheriff Doyle trying to flank around the back. Lucas led the target, accounting for movement and distance. Fired. Doyle jerked in his saddle, clutched his chest, slumped forward. Dead. Lucas felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret. Just the cold arithmetic of survival. The shooting stopped. An eerie quiet fell over the valley, broken only by the moans of wounded men and horses. Lucas counted. 6 dead. 2 badly wounded. That left 4, including Brennan. They'd pulled back beyond the ridge, regrouping. Everyone okay? Lucas called down. Good here, Marcus replied. I not hurt, Aida said. You bleeding? Lucas looked down. Blood ran down his leg from the graze. More blood soaked his left arm. He'd been hit twice without really noticing. I'm fine, he said, though the adrenaline was starting to fade and the pain was coming in to replace it. He climbed down from the roof carefully. His leg buckled when he hit the ground. Marcus caught him. "You're not fine," Marcus said. "You're leaking like a sieve." Aida was there immediately examining the wounds. The thigh was superficial, just a graze. The arm was worse. The bullet had gone clean through the meat of his forearm, missing bone but tearing muscle. "You lucky," Aida said, already cleaning the wound. "Could be much worse." "Doesn't feel lucky," Lucas grunted. She worked quickly, efficiently. The same herbs, the same careful hands. Lucas watched her face as she concentrated, noticed the way her brow furrowed, the way she bit her lower lip when she was thinking. Beautiful, he realized. Not in the way Rebecca had been beautiful. Different, harder, like something forged instead of grown. "There," Aida said, tying off the bandage. "You live. Again." "Getting to be a habit," Lucas said. A shout from outside interrupted them. Lucas moved to the window rifle, ready despite the pain. Brennan stood at the edge of rifle range, white flag in hand. Behind him, his 3 remaining men. "Parley," Brennan called. "I want to talk." Lucas and Marcus exchanged glances. "Could be a trick," Marcus said. "Could be," Lucas agreed. "But he's down to 4 men. We hurt him bad. Maybe he's actually ready to deal." Lucas stepped out onto the porch. Winchester held ready but not aimed. Brennan rode forward alone slowly, stopped 30 yards out. "You've cost me a lot today, Harrow," Brennan said. His voice shook with barely controlled rage. "More than that worthless land is worth." "Then ride away," Lucas replied. "Take your men and go. This doesn't have to continue." Brennan laughed, bitter, harsh. "Oh, but it does. You see, I've made promises. To the Apache. To my investors. To myself." He leaned forward in his saddle. "And I don't break promises." "Then we've got nothing to talk about." "Actually, we do. Because in about 3 hours, 30 Apache warriors are going to ride down that ridge, led by Dakota, and they're coming for her." Brennan pointed at the cabin. "The full moon, the judgment time, they're going to burn you out and take her back. Nothing you can do to stop them." Lucas felt ice in his stomach. He'd known the Apache were coming. But 30 warriors, against 3 defenders already exhausted, low on ammunition. "You could survive this," Brennan continued. "You and your one-eyed friend. Just give me the woman. Walk away. I'll even pay you for the land. Fair price." "No," Lucas said. "Think about it, man. She's not even your people. What do you owe her?" "Everything," Lucas said quietly. "She gave me something I thought I'd lost. A reason to fight. A reason to live. I'm not giving that up. Not for you, not for anyone." Brennan stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head. "Then you're a fool, and you'll die a fool's death." He turned his horse and rode back to his men. They mounted up, rode away toward the ridge. Not retreating. Lucas knew that. Just getting out of the way. Letting the Apache do the work for them. Lucas went back inside. Marcus and Aida were waiting. 30 warriors, Marcus said. He'd been listening. "At sunset. We can't win that, Lucas. We just can't." Lucas looked at Aida. She met his eyes steadily. "You still have time to run," he said. "Both of you. Take the horses. Head south. I'll hold them here long as I can." "No," Aida said firmly. "No," Marcus echoed. Lucas felt something catch in his throat. Gratitude, brotherhood, the knowledge that he wasn't alone. "Then we make our stand," he said. "Here, tonight, and we make them remember us." Outside, the sun began its slow descent toward the western horizon. The shadows lengthened. The temperature dropped. Somewhere in the gathering darkness an army was coming, and 3 people bound by choice rather than blood prepared to face it together. The sun hung low over Iron Ridge, painting the valley in shades of amber and blood. Lucas stood on the porch counting ammunition. 40 rounds for the Winchester, 20 for the Colt. The Remington had maybe 15 left. Marcus's shotgun was down to a dozen shells. Not enough, not nearly enough for 30 warriors. Inside, Aida moved quietly, preparing. She'd filled every container they had with water, set out strips of cloth for bandages, lined up the weapons within easy reach of each firing position. No wasted motion, no panic, just steady preparation for what was coming. Marcus sat cleaning his shotgun for the third time, though it didn't need cleaning. His hands needed something to do. Lucas understood. The waiting before a fight was always harder than the fight itself. "Tell me about Gettysburg," Aida said suddenly. Lucas turned from the window. She was sitting at the table, hands folded in front of her. Calm. Too calm. "Why?" "Because you go there in your fever dreams. You scream names. Places. I want to understand what make you who you are." Lucas exchanged a glance with Marcus, who nodded slightly. "Your story to tell." Lucas sat down across from Aida. Outside, the shadows grew longer. "July 1863, he began. "Hottest summer I can remember. We'd been marching for days. Confederate Army under Lee was invading Pennsylvania. We had to stop them." He paused. "Third day of the battle. 15,000 rebels came across that field. A mile of open ground. We were dug in on Cemetery Ridge. I was 19 years old, and I'd never been so scared in my life." "You kill many men?" Aida asked. 47. I counted every one." Lucas's voice went flat. "We all did. The officers kept tally, rewarded the best shots, like it was some kind of sport." "You feel shame?" Lucas thought about that. Did he? No. Not for the killing. It was war. They were trying to kill me. I did what I had to do. He met her eyes. "But I feel shame for how easy it became. By the end of that day, I wasn't even thinking about it. Just loading and firing, like harvesting wheat." Aida nodded slowly. "My people same way. When we raid, when we fight, we become different. Not ourselves. Something harder. Colder. Must be that way to survive." "Yeah," Lucas agreed. "Must be. You think we survived tonight?" The question hung in the air. Marcus stopped cleaning his shotgun, waited for Lucas's answer. "Honestly, no. Not if it's just a fight." Lucas leaned back in his chair. 30-3. They've got numbers and surprise and the high ground. We've got a cabin and some trenches. Math doesn't work." "Then why we stay?" Aida asked. "Because running doesn't work either. Brennan will hunt us. The Apache will hunt us. And even if we escape, what then? Spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders, hiding." Lucas shook his head. "I did that for 3 years after Rebecca and Emma died. Hid from the world, from life. I'm done hiding. So we die with honor instead." There was no judgment in Aida's voice, just curiosity. "Maybe. Or maybe we find another way." Marcus spoke up. "What other way? We can't negotiate. We can't fight. What's left?" Lucas stood, walked to the window, stared out at the ridge where the Apache fires were beginning to glow in the gathering dusk. "We prove you're not cursed," he said to Aida. "We call the shaman, demand a proper trial." Aida stood so abruptly her chair fell over. "No. They kill me. That is trial." "Not if we do it right." Lucas turned to face her. "Marcus, when you got jumped by those warriors, what exactly did Dakota say?" Marcus thought back. "Said we had 3 days. Return her or they attack." "But did he say why? Did he mention the curse?" "No. Just said she had to face judgment." Lucas nodded, pieces falling into place. "Judgment, not execution. There's a difference." "Not to Apache," Aida said, her voice rising. "Judgment, execution, same thing." "Maybe not." Lucas moved closer to her. "You said your moon blood returned. You said it yourself, that proves you're not cursed. What if the shaman examines you? What if he admits he was wrong? Shaman never admit wrong, would shame him, shame tribe. Maybe. Or maybe he's been waiting for proof. Maybe he wants to be wrong. Aida stared at Lucas like he'd lost his mind. You not understand Apache way. Medicine man cannot show weakness, cannot say I make mistake, would lose all power. Marcus cleared his throat. Actually, I might have heard something about that. Old Kitchi, the head shaman. He's ancient. 80 years old, maybe more. Word is he's been having doubts about some of his visions. Niol won't listen, but the younger warriors are starting to question. So there's division in the tribe, Lucas said. Good. We can use that. Use how? Aida demanded. They not listen to me. I am condemned woman. I have no voice. But I do, Lucas said. As the man who rescued you, as the one who's been protecting you, I have the right to demand trial by their own customs. Aida shook her head violently. Too dangerous. If trial go wrong, you die too. They kill us both. If we do nothing, we all die anyway. At least this way there's a chance. Marcus stood up. I'll ride out. Take the message to their camp. Demand parley under white flag. They might kill you, Lucas warned. Might, but I don't think so. Apache respect courage, and requesting trial following their customs that's honorable, might surprise them enough to listen. Lucas looked at Aida. She was pale, trembling. Your choice, he said gently. Always your choice. We can fight, we can run, or we can try this. Aida closed her eyes. For a long moment she stood perfectly still. When she opened them again, something had changed. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Determination. Steel. We try, she said. But if they try to take me, you promise. You shoot me first, not let them bury me again. Lucas felt something twist in his chest, the thought of pointing a gun at her even in mercy. Promise me, Aida insisted. I promise, Lucas said, though the words tasted like ash. Marcus rode out as the sun touched the horizon, white flag tied to his rifle barrel. He rode slowly, deliberately, giving the Apache sentries plenty of time to see him coming. No sudden moves, no threats. Lucas watched through the Winchester's sight, saw Marcus reach the first line of warriors, saw them surround him. Tense moments while they talked. Then Marcus was being led deeper into the camp toward the largest fire where the chiefs would be. Now we wait, Lucas said. Aida stood beside him at the window. He could feel the tension radiating off her. Tell me about your grandmother, Lucas said, trying to distract her. The one who told you to fight. Aida was quiet for a moment, then began to speak. She was called Casa, means dressed in furs. She was warrior woman in her youth, fought beside men, killed 3 Comanche raiders when they attacked our village. After she grow old, she become medicine woman, but different kind, not like Kitchi who speaks in riddles. She spoke plain truth. People feared her tongue more than her knife. She sounds formidable. She was hard, like winter, like stone. Aida smiled slightly. But she loved me. When I married Dakota, she warned me. Said, marriage is like river. Sometimes it runs smooth, sometimes it run wild. But if it stop flowing, it becomes stagnant water, poison. She knew before I did that my marriage was dying. Did she know about the curse? She died before Kitchi declared me barren. But I think she would have laughed. She did not believe in curses. She believed in bad luck and bad choices. Nothing more. An hour passed, then another. Full darkness fell. The moon rose fat and golden. Not quite full yet. Tomorrow night it would be perfectly round. Tomorrow night was when they'd planned to attack. Finally movement. A single rider coming down from the ridge, Marcus returning. Lucas met him outside. Marcus dismounted, stiffly exhausted. They'll do it, Marcus said. Trial by tradition. Tomorrow at dusk in Black Mesa Valley. Neutral ground. Kitchi will perform the examination. If he declares her still cursed, they take her. If not, she goes free. And us? Lucas asked. Safe passage, both ways. Niol gave his word. And whatever else he is, he's a man of honor. Lucas felt relief and dread in equal measure. A chance. But what a terrible chance. There's more, Marcus added. Brennan got wind of it somehow. He'll be there too. Says he has a right to witness since he made the original deal with Neol. Of course he will, Lucas said bitterly, probably hoping Kitchy condemns her so he can watch. Inside they told Aida. She took it better than Lucas expected. Nodded once, face unreadable. "I prepare," was all she said. That night none of them slept. They sat around the table talking in low voices, sharing stories. Marcus told about his childhood in Virginia before the war. Lucas talked about Rebecca, really talked about her for the first time, not just the death, but the life, her laugh, her stubbornness, the way she sang while cooking. Aida shared memories of her life before the condemnation, growing up in the tribe, learning to tan hides and weave baskets, her first buffalo hunt, marrying Dakota when she was 18, full of hope and love. "He was good man then," she said quietly. "Strong, kind. He brought me flowers from the mountains, sang to me at night. I thought we would have many children, grow old together." "What changed?" Lucas asked. "Time, pressure from tribe, his father. When first year passed with no baby, I saw worry in his eyes. Second year worry became doubt. Third year doubt became shame. He stopped looking at me the same way, stopped touching me except when trying to make baby. I became task, not wife." "I'm sorry," Lucas said. "Not your fault, not even his fault really. We were young, did not know how to fight for each other against the world." The next day crept by with agonizing slowness. Lucas checked his weapons compulsively. Aida bathed in the stream, put on her cleanest dress. Marcus paced shotgun always within reach. As the sun began to descend, they mounted their horses and rode toward Black Mesa Valley. The valley was a natural amphitheater surrounded by red rock walls that glowed like embers in the sunset light. Neol was already there with 10 warriors, including Dakota. They sat their horses in a line, faces impassive. On the opposite side, Brennan waited with his 4 remaining men. He sat his horse like a king surveying peasants. When he saw Lucas and Aida, he smiled, not a pleasant smile. In the center of the valley a fire had been built. Beside it stood an ancient figure. Kitchy. The shaman was impossibly old, bent like a wind-twisted tree. His left eye was milky white with blindness. Long white hair hung past his shoulders, decorated with feathers and beads. He leaned on a gnarled walking stick, but despite his age, there was power in his stance. Lucas, Aida, and Marcus rode forward slowly, stopped 20 yards from the fire, dismounted. Neol spoke in Apache. His voice carried across the valley, formal and commanding. Marcus leaned close to Lucas. "He's opening the trial, declaring the terms. If Kitchy says she's cursed, she belongs to the tribe. If not, she's free to go." Kitchy stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was surprisingly strong for such an ancient man. "We gather under Grandmother Moon," Marcus translated quietly, "to judge Aida, daughter of the Wind Clan. 3 years past I declared her barren, cursed by the spirits. She was condemned and buried. Now she returns claiming the spirits were not angry, that she was tested, not cursed. Prove it." Aida stepped forward. Lucas wanted to go with her, but Marcus held his arm. "Her test has to face it alone." Kitchy produced a small clay bowl from his pouch, poured dark liquid into it from a leather flask, held it out to Aida. "Truth serum," Marcus whispered. "If she lies, the spirits will show. She'll get sick, maybe die." Aida took the bowl. Her hands shook slightly, but she raised it to her lips and drank. All of it. Her face twisted at the taste, but she swallowed it down. Kitchy waited. 5 minutes. 10. Aida stood steady. No vomiting, no convulsions, no signs of poisoning. The old shaman nodded. First test passed. The spirits do not reject her words. He stepped closer to Aida, placed his hand on her stomach, closed his eyes. His lips moved whispering words Lucas couldn't hear. some kind of prayer or spell. A full minute passed. The only sound was the crackling of the fire and the wind through the rocks. Finally Kitchi opened his eyes. He looked at Aida for a long moment. Then at Niol. Then at the gathered crowd. "I feel life force," he said, his voice carrying. "Moon connection restored. The blood flows again." Gasps from the Apache warriors. Dakota's face showed shock. Niol looked like he'd been struck. 3 years ago, Kitchi continued, I read the signs. I saw drought, saw sickness, saw death of children. I looked for cause and found a woman with no moon blood. I declared her cursed. The old shaman paused. I was wrong. The words fell like stones into still water, ripples of shock spreading through the gathered crowd. Dakota dismounted suddenly, strode forward. Impossible, he shouted in Apache, then switched to broken English. 3 years she empty, how she suddenly not cursed. Kitchi turned to face him. Despite the age difference, the shaman's presence was commanding. She was tested by hardship, Kitchi said. Stress took her moon blood. I thought it was curse, but it was trial. The spirits testing her strength. She survived being buried. She survived abandonment. She survived shame. The spirits are satisfied. The test is complete. Dakota looked at Aida. Pain and confusion warred on his face. I do what tribe demanded, he said. What father demanded. I bury you. I marry Imala. I try to forget, but I cannot. You always there. He touched his chest. Here. Aida's voice was gentle when she replied. I forgive tribe. I forgive you, but I cannot return. That life is dead. I am different now. Because of him, Dakota pointed at Lucas. White man. Because of me, Aida said firmly. I choose different path. I choose live. Before anyone could respond, a gunshot cracked through the valley. Kitchi jerked, clutched his shoulder. Blood bloomed across his buckskin shirt. He staggered, fell to his knees. Brennan sat on his horse pistol, smoking in his hand. Enough of this savage nonsense, Brennan roared. I made a deal. The woman is mine. The valley erupted into chaos. Apache warriors drew weapons. Brennan's men raised rifles. Lucas pulled his Colt, stepped in front of Aida. Stand down, Niol commanded in English. This is sacred ground. No blood. But Brennan was beyond reason. He spurred his horse forward straight toward Aida. If I can't have the land, I'll have blood, he shouted. Everything slowed down. Lucas saw Brennan raising his pistol, saw it aim at Aida. His own Colt came up, but Brennan was moving a difficult shot. Lucas fired. The bullet caught Brennan's horse in the chest. The animal screamed, reared. Brennan fought to control it, pistol swinging wild. Lucas charged forward, closing the distance, grabbed Brennan's gun arm with his left hand, hauled him from the saddle. They hit the ground hard, rolling in the dust. Brennan was bigger, heavier, younger. He got on top, driving his fist into Lucas's wounded shoulder. White-hot pain exploded through Lucas's body. His grip loosened. Brennan pulled a knife from his boot, drove it down toward Lucas's throat. Lucas caught Brennan's wrist with both hands. Their faces were inches apart. Lucas could smell whiskey on Brennan's breath, see the madness in his eyes. You've taken everything from me, Brennan screamed. My plans, my money, my future. You took it yourself. Lucas grunted, muscles straining. With your greed. The knife inched closer. Lucas's arms trembled. The fever and the wounds had weakened him more than he'd realized. Then Brennan stiffened. His eyes went wide. He looked down. Blood poured from a hole in his chest. He turned his head slowly. Behind him, Aida stood with the Remington smoke curling from the barrel. Her face was pale but steady. I am blessed, she said quietly. You are cursed. Brennan tried to speak. Blood bubbled from his lips. He fell sideways, twitched, once went still. Silence crashed over the valley. Lucas stood slowly. Every muscle screamed. He looked at Aida. She was staring at Brennan's body, the gun still in her hand. It's over, Lucas said gently. Brennan's 4 men looked at each other. Their employer was dead. The fight was over. They turned their horses and rode away without a word. Hired guns had no loyalty beyond gold. Niol dismounted, knelt beside Kitchi. The old shaman was still alive, the shoulder wound painful but not fatal. "The trial is complete," Niol announced. "Kitchi has spoken. Ayita is free." Dakota stepped forward, looked at Ayita for a long moment. "I was wrong," he said in careful English. "I should fight for you, not bury you." He paused. "You deserve better than me. You deserve him." A nod toward Lucas. "I forgive you," Ayita said. "Be happy with Imala. Be good father to your child." Dakota nodded once. Then he turned and walked back to his horse. Marcus appeared at Lucas's side, supporting him. "Can you ride?" Marcus asked. "Yeah," Lucas said, though he wasn't entirely sure. They mounted their horses. As they turned to leave, Niol called out, "Lucas Harrow, you have honor. You followed our customs, risked death for one not your blood." The old chief nodded with respect. "The Apache will not trouble you again. This I swear." Lucas returned the nod. "Thank you." As they rode out of the valley, the full moon rose behind them, silvering the landscape. Ayita rode close beside Lucas, ready to catch him if he fell. "You saved me," Lucas said. "Again." "We save each other," Ayita replied. "That is how it works now." Lucas looked at her. In the moonlight she seemed to glow, strong, beautiful, alive. "Yes," he agreed. "That's how it works." They rode toward home, leaving the past in the dust behind them. The ride back to Iron Ridge took twice as long as it should have. Lucas swayed in the saddle, barely conscious. The knife wound in his side, where Brennan had stabbed him during the struggle, was deeper than he'd realized. Blood soaked through the makeshift bandage Ayita had tied around his waist before they left Black Mesa Valley. Marcus rode on his left, Ayita on his right, both ready to catch him if he fell. "Almost there," Marcus kept saying. "Just hold on." Lucas focused on the horizon, on staying upright, on breathing. Each breath sent fire through his side. The world tilted and swam. He gripped the saddle horn with white-knuckled hands. When they finally reached the cabin, Lucas tried to dismount, and his legs simply gave out. He hit the ground hard, vision graying. Strong hands caught him. Marcus and Ayita dragging him inside, laying him on the bed. "How bad?" Marcus asked, cutting away Lucas's shirt. Ayita examined the wound. Her face went pale. "Bad. Very bad. Knife go deep. Maybe hit something inside." She looked up at Marcus. "I not know if I can fix." "You have to try," Marcus said grimly. "Nearest doctor is in Redemption, and after what happened there, they'd hang us before treating him." Ayita nodded, steadied herself. Lucas watched her face through a haze of pain, saw her transform from frightened woman to something harder, a healer, a survivor. "I need fire, hot water, clean cloth, all the herbs I gathered." She was already moving, hands swift and sure. "And whiskey, much whiskey." Marcus built up the fire while Ayita boiled water. She stripped away Lucas's blood-soaked bandages, exposing the wound. 4 inches long, deep enough that Lucas could see white tissue beneath the blood. "This will hurt," Ayita warned. "Just do it." Lucas managed through clenched teeth. She poured whiskey directly into the wound. Lucas screamed back, arching. Marcus held him down. The pain was beyond anything Lucas had felt before. Worse than the war, worse than anything. Then Ayita began to clean the wound with boiled water and herbs. Yarrow to stop bleeding. Sage to fight infection. Something else Lucas didn't recognize, a root she mashed into paste. "From grandmother," Ayita explained as she worked. "She teach me, for deep wounds, helps body heal from inside." She packed the wound with the herbal paste, then stitched it closed using thread from Rebecca's old sewing kit. Lucas had stopped screaming. Didn't have the energy anymore. Just lay there, teeth-gritted, tears running down his temples. 15 stitches. Ayita counted each one aloud, her voice steady even though her hands shook. When she finally tied off the last stitch, Lucas passed out. He dreamed of Gettysburg again. But this time it was different. He wasn't fighting. He was walking across the battlefield after the shooting stopped. Bodies everywhere, thousands of them, Union blue and Confederate gray mixed together in death. He was looking for someone, searching among the dead, calling a name he couldn't quite hear. Then Rebecca appeared. She stood among the corpses, whole and healthy, holding Emma's hand. "You need to stop looking back," Rebecca said. Her voice was gentle, kind, the way he remembered it. "You need to let us go." "I can't," Lucas said. "I failed you. I wasn't there when you needed me." "You did what you could. The storm came. You tried." She smiled sadly. "But Lucas, we're gone. We've been gone for 3 years, and you're still here, still alive. You need to live." "I don't know how anymore." Rebecca glanced to the side. Lucas followed her gaze. Aida stood there, not part of the dream, somehow separate from it, watching. "She knows how," Rebecca said. "She can teach you, if you let her." "I loved you," Lucas said, his voice breaking. "I know, and I loved you, always will." Rebecca squeezed Emma's hand. "But love doesn't end when we do. It changes, grows, finds new places to go. Don't let our death kill you too, Lucas. Please." She was fading. Emma waved her smile, bright and innocent. Then they were gone, just mist and memory. Lucas woke to gray morning light. His side throbbed with a deep grinding pain, but the feverish confusion was gone. His head was clear. Aida sat in the chair beside the bed, her own head tilted back asleep. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, worry lines creasing her forehead even in sleep. How long had she been watching over him? Lucas tried to sit up. Pain lanced through his side, stealing his breath. He gasped. Aida jerked awake immediately on her feet in an instant. "No move," she commanded. "You tear stitches." "How long?" Lucas asked. His voice was rough, throat dry. 2 days. Fever very bad first night. You talk to ghosts." She brought water to his lips. "Drink slow." The water was the best thing Lucas had ever tasted. Cool and clean and real. "Marcus," he asked. "Gone to Redemption. Make sure Brennan's men really leave. Make peace with town." Aida sat back down. "He come back tomorrow, maybe." And they were alone then, just the two of them in the quiet cabin. "You should rest," Lucas said. "You look exhausted." "I rest when you safe." Aida's jaw set in that stubborn way he'd come to recognize. "Not before. I'm safe now. You almost die. 3 times in 1 week." She shook her head. "You are dangerous man, dangerous to yourself." Despite the pain, Lucas smiled slightly. "Can't argue with that." Aida stood, checked his bandages. The bleeding had stopped. No signs of infection yet, though it was still early. "You dream about wife again," Aida said as she worked. "And daughter. You call their names. Say you sorry." "Yeah," Lucas admitted. "You carry much guilt. Too much." She met his eyes. "They not blame you? Why you blame yourself?" Lucas thought about the dream. Rebecca's words, "You need to let us go." "Because if I let go of the guilt, I have to let go of them," he said quietly. "And I'm not ready." "Guilt not same as love," Aida said. "You can love them and still live, can honor memory without dying inside." She was right. Lucas knew she was right. But knowing and doing were different things. That afternoon Aida helped him sit up. The movement sent waves of pain through his side, but he managed it. Progress. She brought him soup made from rabbit she'd caught and vegetables from the garden. It was good. Simple, but nourishing. "Where did you learn to cook?" Lucas asked. "All Apache women learn. Is expected." She ladled more soup into his bowl. But grandmother teach me special things, healing foods, foods for strength, foods for different sickness. She taught you well. Aita smiled slightly. She teach me many things, how to survive, how to be strong, how to forgive. The smile faded. I wish she here now. She know what to say. I not have words. Words for what? Aida set down the soup pot, sat in the chair, hands folded in her lap. She looked nervous, uncertain. For what I feel, she said finally. For you, for this. She gestured around the cabin. For everything that happened. Lucas's heart beat faster. He knew what she was trying to say, felt the same tangle of emotions, gratitude and attraction and fear and possibility all mixed together. You don't owe me anything, he said carefully. I didn't save you expecting anything in return. I know. That's why I feel this way. Aida looked up at him. You give me life, give me choice, give me home. Ask nothing back. What kind of man does that? A decent one, I hope. More than decent. She stood, moved closer to the bed. You are good man, Lucas Harrow. Best man I know. And I want to stay. Not because I owe you, not because I have nowhere else. Because I choose you. The words hung in the air between them. Lucas felt something shift in his chest, the ice that had surrounded his heart for 3 years cracking. I'm not an easy man to live with, he warned. I've got ghosts, nightmares, days where I can barely speak to anyone. I have ghosts too. We can be haunted together. Lucas reached out his hand. Aida took it. Her hand was small and his calloused from work and rough from the desert sun, but warm, alive. Then stay, he said, as long as you want. This is your home. Our home, Aida corrected. Our home, Lucas agreed. She leaned down, pressed her forehead to his again. That gesture he was beginning to understand. Connection, trust, belonging. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing together, two survivors finding shelter in each other. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Aida tended Lucas's wound, changed his bandages, made sure he ate and drank and rested. Lucas healed slowly. The stitches held. The infection he'd feared never came thanks to Aida's herbs and constant care. By the end of the first week he could stand without help. By the second he could walk to the door and back without needing to rest. Marcus returned from redemption with news. Brennan's remaining men had scattered. The land baron's empire was collapsing without him. The small ranchers he'd been pressuring were breathing easier. The town council had asked Marcus to consider becoming sheriff permanently. Told them I'd think about it, Marcus said, sitting at the table with Lucas and Aida. Might be nice. Settle down. Stop wandering. You'd be good at it, Lucas said. Fair, honest, not afraid to stand up to powerful men. High praise coming from you, Marcus grinned. What about you two? What's the plan? Lucas and Aida exchanged glances. Stay here, Lucas said. Work the land, build something. Together, Marcus asked, though the knowing look in his one eye said he already knew the answer. Together, Aida confirmed. Marcus nodded, satisfied. Good. You're good for each other, both too stubborn to quit, too damaged to judge. He stood. I'll head back to town tomorrow. Got a lot to do if I'm going to be sheriff, but I'll visit. Make sure you're not killing each other out here. That night, after Marcus had gone to sleep in the barn, Lucas and Aida sat on the porch. The air was cool, crisp. Stars blazed overhead in their thousands. Tell me about your dreams, Aida said. For future, what you want. Lucas thought about it. Peace, he said finally. A quiet life. No more fighting, no more running, just work and rest and simple days. He paused. What about you? Same. Peace. Belonging. She looked at him. Family. Maybe. Someday. The word hit Lucas like a physical thing. Family. The thing he'd lost. the thing he'd thought he could never have again. "I'm 40 years old," he said, "and broken in more ways than one. Not much of a catch. I am 26, condemned by my people, saved by stranger. Cannot have children, maybe." She shrugged. "Also, not much of catch. We're quite a pair." "Yes," Aida agreed. "We are." She leaned against him, head on his shoulder. Lucas put his arm around her, carefully mindful of his healing wound. They sat like that as the stars wheeled overhead, two people who'd been buried each in their own way, learning to live again, learning that survival wasn't enough, that you had to choose life actively every day, that healing was possible if you were brave enough to try. 3 weeks after Black Mesa Valley, a visitor came to Iron Ridge. 5 Apache women on horseback, elderly, dignified. They carried a large bundle wrapped in deerskin. Aida went pale when she saw them. "Elders," she whispered to Lucas. "Clan mothers." They dismounted slowly, moving with the careful dignity of age. The leader was perhaps 70, gray hair in long braids, face like weathered leather. She spoke in Apache. Aida listened, then translated for Lucas. "This is Naira. She is grandmother of Wind Clan, my clan. She say they come in peace. Bring gift." Naira unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a blanket, the most beautiful thing Lucas had ever seen, woven from sheep wool and colored with natural dyes. Intricate patterns covered every inch, moons and stars, symbols Lucas didn't recognize but felt the weight of. "Fertility blanket," Aida translated, her voice thick with emotion. "Given to women who will bear children, blessing from clan, apology for wrong done." Naira spoke again, long and formal. She say Kitchi told whole tribe what happened, that he was wrong, that stress and fear took my moon blood, that I was tested, not cursed. Tears ran down Aida's face. She say I was wronged. Clan is ashamed. They ask forgiveness. Aida stepped forward, took the blanket with trembling hands. Spoke in Apache, her voice steady despite the tears. Naira smiled, touched Aida's face gently. Then she turned to Lucas, spoke directly to him. "She say you are good man," Aida translated. "Protect daughter of Wind Clan when they abandon her. They owe you debt. They honor you." Lucas bowed his head, not sure what else to do. The women stayed for an hour, shared food, told stories, laughed. When they left, Aida watched them ride away until they disappeared over the ridge. "They forgave me," she said wonderingly. "After everything, they forgave me." "And you forgave them." Aida thought about it. "Yes, I think so. Is hard, but yes." She carried the blanket inside, spread it on the bed, ran her hands over the intricate patterns. "For child that will come," she said softly. "They believe I can have children now. That moon blood returning is sign." "Do you believe it?" Lucas asked. "I want to believe." She looked at him. "But even if no children come, I still have home. Still have you. That is enough." Lucas crossed the room, took her hands in his. "It's more than enough," he said. "It's everything." He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. She wrapped her arms around him, careful of his healing wound. Outside, the sun set over Iron Ridge. Inside, two people held each other and dared to hope, dared to imagine a future, dared to believe that the worst was behind them and something good, something worth fighting for, was finally beginning. The past would always be there. The ghosts would always whisper. But for the first time in a long time, Lucas could hear something else too. The present, the living, breathing moment, and the quiet promise of tomorrow. 4 months passed like water flowing over stones, steady, inevitable, changing everything slowly. Lucas's wound healed into a thick scar that pulled when he moved certain ways, a permanent reminder of Silas Brennan and Black Mesa Valley. But the pain faded. His strength returned. By October he could work a full day without needing to rest. The cabin changed too. Small things at first. Aida's deerskin dress hanging on a peg beside Lucas's coat. Her gathering basket stacked in the corner. Herbs drying from the rafters, filling the air with the smell of sage and yarrow and sweetgrass. Then bigger changes. Lucas built a second chair for the table, expanded the garden, added a small room onto the back of the cabin, not saying out loud what it was for, not yet. But both of them knew. Hope given physical form in wood and nails. Marcus visited twice a month, riding out from Redemption where he'd accepted the sheriff position. He brought news from town. The small ranchers were thriving without Brennan's pressure. New families were moving in. A school was being built. "Place is growing," Marcus said one afternoon, sitting on the porch with Lucas while Aida worked in the garden. "Could use good people, strong people, people who know how to stand up for what's right." "You offering me a job?" Lucas asked. "Maybe. Town needs a marshal. Someone to back up the sheriff when trouble comes." Lucas thought about it. He'd spent 3 years avoiding people, hiding on his ranch. But that was before Aida, before he remembered what it meant to be part of something larger than himself. "Let me think on it," Lucas said. "You do that." Marcus watched Aida pulling carrots from the ground, her movements efficient and practiced. "She's good for you. I've never seen you this settled." "Yeah," Lucas agreed. "She is." That night, Lucas brought up Marcus's offer to Aida as they prepared dinner together. It had become their routine. She would cook, he would help, chopping vegetables, setting the table. Small domestic acts that felt like building something. "What you think?" Lucas asked. "About the marshal job?" Aida considered while stirring the pot of stew. "You want to do it?" "Part of me does. Part of me likes the idea of helping people, making things better." He paused. "But part of me just wants to stay here, keep the world at arm's length. Cannot do both." Lucas hadn't thought of it that way. "Maybe," he said. "Work in town a few days a week, come home the rest." "Then try," Aida said simply. "See if it fits. If not, you stop." Her practicality always surprised him. No drama, no overthinking. Just try and see. "What about you?" Lucas asked. "What do you want?" Aida set down the spoon, turned to face him. Her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. "I am late," she said quietly. "Moon blood. Should come 3 weeks ago. Not come." Lucas's heart stopped, then started again faster. "Are you sure?" "Not sure. Too early to be sure. But I feel different. Tired in new way. Sick in morning." She met his eyes. "I think maybe baby. But I am afraid to hope. Afraid to be wrong again." Lucas crossed the room, took her hands. "If it's true, we'll face it together. If it's not, we'll face that together too." "You want baby?" Aida asked. "You already lose daughter. Maybe too painful to try again." Lucas thought about Emma, the joy she'd brought, the devastating loss. For 3 years he'd told himself he could never go through that again, could never risk that kind of pain. But looking at Aida now, seeing the hope and fear in her eyes, he realized something. Pain was part of love. You couldn't have one without risking the other, and a life without risk was no life at all. "Yes," he said, "I want a baby. With you. If it happens." Aida's eyes filled with tears, happy tears this time. She pulled him close, buried her face in his chest. "I am scared," she whispered. "Me too," Lucas admitted. "But we'll be scared together." 2 weeks later, Aida was sure. The moon blood didn't come. The morning sickness continued. Her breasts grew tender. All the signs her grandmother had taught her to recognize. She was pregnant. They told Marcus when he visited in November, riding out with supplies for winter. His reaction was pure joy. He grabbed Lucas in a bear hug, slapped his back hard enough to hurt. "Congratulations, you old dog. Didn't think you had it in you." Neither did I, Lucas said, grinning despite himself. Marcus turned to Aita, his expression softening. And you, after everything they put you through, telling you that you were cursed. Now look. He shook his head in wonder. If that's not proof of something, I don't know what is. Aita smiled, one hand on her still flat stomach. Grandmother was right. Spring always comes after winter. As winter settled over Iron Ridge, Lucas and Aita prepared. Lucas finished the extra room, built a cradle from pine wood he'd cut and cured himself, carved simple patterns into the wood, not as intricate as the fertility blanket, but made with care, with love. Aita sewed tiny clothes from fabric Marcus brought from town, made a soft mattress for the cradle stuffed with cattail down, gathered the herbs she would need when her time came. One evening in December, as snow fell softly outside, Lucas found Aita sitting by the fire with Rebecca's Bible open on her lap. She was sounding out words slowly, her finger tracing each line. "What are you reading?" Lucas asked, sitting beside her. "Ruth," Aita said, "the woman who leave her people, go with mother-in-law to new land, start new life." She read aloud slowly but clearly. "Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest I will go, and where thou lodgest I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God." Lucas listened, moved by the words and by Aita's determination to learn them. "That's beautiful," he said. "Is like me," Aita said. "Leave my people. Come to your land. Your people, now my people." She paused. "But also different. I not leave because of duty. I leave because I choose, because here is where I belong." Lucas took her hand. "You belong here," he agreed. "Always." Christmas came. Lucas had never celebrated much after Rebecca and Emma died, but Aita asked him about the holiday, curious about white customs. So Lucas cut a small pine tree, brought it inside. They decorated it with strings of dried berries and pine cones. Marcus rode out Christmas Eve bringing gifts, a new rifle for Lucas, fabric and thread for Aita, and for the baby, a small carved horse, smooth and perfect. "Made it myself," Marcus said, embarrassed. "Not much of a carver, but I tried." "It's perfect," Aita said, cradling the toy carefully. "Baby will love it." They ate dinner together. Roasted venison, potatoes, carrots from the garden bread Aita had learned to bake. They told stories, laughed. Marcus got a little drunk on whiskey and sang old war songs off-key, but enthusiastic. It was the best Christmas Lucas had experienced in years, not because of the food or gifts, but because of the people, the family. Not blood family, but the family you choose. The family you build from shared struggle and mutual care. That night, after Marcus had ridden back to town, Lucas and Aita stood on the porch. Snow fell in fat white flakes, muffling the world. "Thank you," Lucas said. "For what?" "For giving me a reason to celebrate again. For reminding me what it means to live instead of just surviving." Aita leaned against him, his arm around her shoulders. "You do same for me," she said. "You save my life. Then you teach me how to have life worth saving." They watched the snow fall in comfortable silence. Two people who'd been buried each in their own way, now standing together under an open sky, building something new from the ruins of what came before. Winter deepened. January brought bitter cold and heavy snow. Lucas and Aita stayed close to the cabin, venturing out only to care for the animals and gather firewood. The world shrank to the warm circle of firelight, the sound of wind outside the quiet comfort of shared space. Aita's belly grew. By February, she couldn't hide the pregnancy anymore. The baby made itself known. Kicks and movements that made her gasp and laugh. Lucas would place his hand on her stomach, feel the life inside. His child. Their child. It terrified him. The thought of being a father again. The memory of Emma's death still sharp enough to cut. But Aita's confidence steadied him. She had no doubt. No fear, just certainty that this child would be born healthy and strong. "How do you know?" Lucas asked one night as they lay in bed, his hand on her belly. "I feel it. Here." She placed her hand over his. "Baby is fighter. Like mother. Like father. Will survive." Lucas wanted to believe her. Chose to believe her. Because what else could you do? Life offered no guarantees. You could only move forward with hope and do your best. March brought the first signs of spring. Snow melting, green shoots pushing through dead grass, birds returning from wherever they'd gone for winter. And with spring came visitors. A delegation from the Apache, not warriors this time. Women, led by old Naira and accompanied by a younger woman Lucas didn't recognize. Aida went pale when she saw the younger woman. "Imala," she whispered. "Takota's wife." They gathered in the cabin. Lucas served coffee, uncomfortable, playing host to his wife's former husband's new wife. But Imala showed no hostility. She was young, maybe 20, with a gentle face and a baby strapped to her back. Naira spoke in Apache. Aida translated for Lucas. "Kitchi sent them. He wants to make sure baby is blessed properly. Apache blessing. To protect child and mother." Lucas looked at Aida. "Your choice." Aida thought for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, I want blessing. Want baby to have protection of both worlds, white and Apache." The ceremony was simple but moving. Naira burned sage, filled the cabin with sweet smoke. She chanted in Apache, laying hands on Aida's belly. Imala joined in, her young voice blending with the elders. When it was done, Naira pressed a small leather pouch into Aida's hands. "Medicine," Aida translated Naira's words. "For when baby comes, to help with pain, to make birth easier." Imala stepped forward, spoke directly to Aida in Apache. Her voice was soft, earnest. Aida listened, then embraced the younger woman, both of them crying. After the Apache women left, Lucas asked what Imala had said. "She apologize," Aida explained, wiping her eyes. "Say she not know I was wronged. She believe I was cursed. She feel shame for taking my husband, for being happy while I suffer." Aida paused. "I tell her I forgive. Tell her I am happy now. Tell her Takota is good man be good father. We both find our path." "That was generous of you," Lucas said. "Not generous. True." Aida looked at him. "I not want Takota now. I want you. She can have him with blessing." Lucas pulled her close, marveled at her capacity for forgiveness, her ability to let go of bitterness and move forward. It was a lesson he was still learning. April arrived. Aida grew large and uncomfortable. Moving became difficult. Sleeping was nearly impossible. She was tired, short-tempered, ready for the baby to come. Lucas finished all the preparations, the cradle beside their bed, clothes washed and ready, herbs and medicines organized. He'd even ridden to Redemption and convinced the town's midwife, Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, to come stay at the ranch for the last 2 weeks of Aida's pregnancy. Mrs. Patterson was 60, weathered and competent. She'd delivered half the babies in Redemption and lost count of how many in the surrounding ranches. "Apache woman, huh?" she said when she arrived, looking Aida over with a professional eye. "Strong, good hips, should be fine." Her blunt manner put both Lucas and Aida at ease. No coddling, no false reassurances, just practical assessment. "Baby's positioned right, Mrs." Patterson announced after her examination. "Could come any day now, could be 2 weeks. Babies come when they're ready, not when we want them to." 3 days later, Aida woke Lucas before dawn. "Baby coming," she said calmly. "I feel it." Lucas's heart hammered, fear and excitement in equal measure. He woke Mrs. Patterson, who took charge immediately. "Boil water, lots of it. Get clean linens. Then stay out of the way unless I call you." Lucas did as ordered. Boiled water, gathered linens, then paced outside the cabin like a caged animal listening to the sounds from within. Aida's breathing, Mrs. Patterson's calm instructions, the occasional cry of pain. Marcus showed up mid-morning, having ridden out to check on them. Found Lucas wearing a path in the dirt. "Baby coming?" Marcus asked. "Yeah." "How long?" "Since dawn." Marcus settled on the porch. "Could be a while. First babies usually take their time." They waited together, hours passing slowly. The sun climbing higher. Lucas wanted to be inside, wanted to help, but Mrs. Patterson had been clear. Men just got in the way. Finally, as the sun reached its peak, a new sound. Thin and reedy and unmistakable. A baby crying. Lucas was through the door before he realized he'd moved. Mrs. Patterson stood by the bed holding a tiny bundle wrapped in cloth. She was smiling. "Healthy boy," she announced. "Good lungs, already complaining about the world." Lucas moved to the bed where Aita lay, exhausted but glowing. Mrs. Patterson placed the baby in her arms. Lucas looked at his son for the first time. Tiny, red-faced, perfect. Aita looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "We did it," she whispered. "We made life." Lucas sat on the edge of the bed, one hand on Aita's shoulder, one finger touching his son's impossibly small hand. The baby's fingers wrapped around Lucas's, gripping tight. "What we name him?" Aita asked. Lucas thought about Rebecca and Emma, about honoring the past while building the future, about the long journey that had brought them here. "Samuel," he said, "after my father, Samuel Harrow." "Samuel?" Aita repeated, testing the name. Then she added something in Apache. "Samuel Running River. White name and Apache name. Both worlds, both families." "Perfect," Lucas agreed. Mrs. Patterson cleaned up, checked both mother and baby one more time, then declared everything satisfactory. "I'll stay tonight. Make sure there's no complications. But barring that, you've got yourself a healthy family, Mr. Harrow." She paused. "Congratulations. Both of you." Marcus was allowed in to meet Samuel. The old soldier's face softened when he saw the baby, his one good eye going misty. "Well, I'll be damned," he said softly. "New life out of all that death. If that ain't hope, I don't know what is." That night, after Mrs. Patterson and Marcus had both gone to sleep, Lucas sat by the bed watching Aita nurse Samuel. The baby fed hungrily, small hands kneading her breast. "I was so scared," Aita admitted, "that he would not be healthy, that something would be wrong, that curse was real after all." "But he's perfect," Lucas said. "Yes, perfect." She looked up at Lucas. "Thank you for believing in me, for giving me this." "We gave each other this," Lucas corrected. "Both of us. Together." He thought about the journey. Finding Aita buried in the earth. The battles, the blood, the fear and pain and struggle. All of it leading to this moment. This tiny human breathing softly in his mother's arms. Worth it. All of it. 3 months later, on a warm July evening, Lucas and Aita stood on the porch. Samuel slept in his cradle inside, watched over by Mrs. Patterson, who'd become a regular visitor and unofficial grandmother. Marcus had stopped by earlier, bringing news that the town council wanted to officially offer Lucas the marshal position. Lucas had accepted. He'd start in September, working 3 days a week in Redemption, coming home the rest. The Apache had sent another delegation. More gifts for the baby. An invitation for Aita to visit the camp when she was ready. Bridges being built slowly but surely. Lucas had hung 2 wooden plaques beside the door. One read Harrow. The other, newly carved, read Aita Harrow. Not 2 separate names. One family name. A declaration. A claim. A promise. "You ever think about how different things might have been?" Aita asked, leaning against the porch railing. "If you not find me that day?" Lucas thought about it. "I'd probably still be here, alone, surviving but not living, waiting to die without admitting that's what I was doing. I would be dead, really dead. But we're not dead. We're here. We survived. We built something. Aida turned to face him. The setting sun caught in her hair turned her skin golden. "You know what grandmother used to say? She say life is like weaving basket. You take hard reeds, broken reeds, reeds no good by themselves, but you weave them together, make them strong, make them beautiful, make them useful. That is us. Broken reeds woven together." Lucas pulled her close, kissed her forehead. "I like that," he said. They stood together as the stars came out. Inside their son slept, around them the land they'd fought for, behind them the ghosts that would always whisper but no longer commanded. Ahead a future built from choice and courage and the stubborn refusal to give up. Two people who'd been buried alive now standing in the open air. Not just surviving, living, truly living. And that Lucas thought was the only victory that mattered. Epilogue, July 1879, 3 months after Samuel's birth. Lucas and Aida stood on the porch as the sun set over Iron Ridge. Samuel slept inside, watched over by Mrs. Patterson. Marcus had left an hour ago, riding back to Redemption with news that Lucas had officially accepted the marshal position. 2 wooden plaques hung beside the door now. Harrow and Aida Harrow. One family name. "You ever think about how different things might have been?" Aida asked. "If you not find me that day?" Lucas thought about it. "I'd probably still be here, alone, surviving but not living, waiting to die without admitting that's what I was doing. I would be dead, really dead. But we're not dead, we're here. We survived. We built something." Aida turned to face him. The setting sun caught in her hair turned her skin golden. "Grandmother used to say, life is like weaving basket. You take hard reeds, broken reeds, reeds no good by themselves. But you weave them together, make them strong, make them beautiful, make them useful. That is us. Broken reeds woven together." Lucas pulled her close, kissed her forehead. "I like that," he said. Inside Samuel stirred and cried. Aida smiled. "He hungry again? Always hungry." She went inside. Lucas watched her go, marveling at how much had changed in 8 months. From buried woman to mother. From condemned to blessed. He looked out across the valley. The land they'd fought for. The home they'd built. 2 people who'd been buried alive now standing in the open air. Not just surviving. Living. Truly living. And that Lucas thought was the only victory that mattered. 41 years later. April 1920. Iron Ridge Ranch. Lucas Harrow, 81 years old, lay in the bed he'd shared with Aida for 4 decades. The same bed where he'd first laid her when she was dying. The same bed where their 3 children had been born. Aida sat beside him, 77 now, her hair white but her eyes still sharp. She held his hand, singing softly in Apache. The healing song, the same one she'd sung the first night. Lucas opened his eyes, smiled weakly. "Still trying to save me," he whispered. "Always," Aida said, "until last breath." Around them the cabin was full. Samuel, now a respected doctor in Tucson, sat by the window. Thomas, who'd taken over the ranch, stood with his wife and 3 children. Emma Rebecca, named for ghosts, finally laid to rest, held her newborn son. "Good life," Lucas said, his voice fading. "Good family." "Best life," Aida agreed, tears streaming down her face. "You give me everything." "We gave each other everything." His grip weakened. Aida kept singing, the Apache healing song mixed with the sound of wind through pines outside. Lucas Harrow died as the sun set over Iron Ridge, the same golden light that had illuminated the day he pulled a dying woman from the earth. 6 months later, in October 1920, Aida followed him. She'd told Samuel she was ready, that she'd lived long enough, that Lucas was waiting. They buried her beside him under the ponderosa pines, wrapped in the fertility blanket the clan mothers had given her 41 years before. Today, the cabin still stands at the base of Iron Ridge. Expanded, modernized, but the original structure remains. The 2 wooden plaques hang beside the door, weathered but readable. Harrow and Aida Harrow. Lucas and Aida's great-great-grandchildren still work the land. The well Lucas fought to protect still provides water. The valley still blooms every spring. In the family cemetery under the pines, 2 headstones stand side by side. Lucas Harrow, 1838 to 1920. He chose to live. Aida Harrow, 1852 to 1920. She taught him how. Some stories don't end. They just pass down through generations, teaching the same lessons in new ways. That survival isn't enough. That hope is a choice. That love, real love, is worth fighting for. And that spring against all odds always comes after winter. Always.